In Trove, there are a few ways for you to make some flux. First is the loot collector, for collecting gear and looting it for flux or mega flux tanks if you happen to have those. Next, we got the trading, which kinda ties in with the next one, but I'll just talk about it real quick. You can use the trade post, the club chests, or the vaults to trade stuff around, and that stuff might be worth some flux, or flux in general. Lastly, we have the market, and unfortunately everything on there is taxed, but we can still use it to make a lot of flux. Now, I'm going to make this video into categories, so feel free to use these chapters on the video timeline to skip around if you don't like a certain method or if you already know about it. Also, I'm going to include some methods that some of my friends told me about, and that's going to be towards the end of the video. And that also includes a super insane way of making flux, a couple of them actually, so stay tuned for that. First things first, Patreon will help you a lot with these methods and alt accounts, but you don't have to have either one of those. It just helps you a little bit more if you have those things. But to start things off, I'll go over what you can do on each of the weekly bonuses. On Monday, you guys can do some Shadow Shard farming. If you don't know what this is, I did make a video about this explaining it, but the main idea is basically you find a challenge portal that has Neon Underground for that current week. If you are unable to find it, then you can refer to the spreadsheet that I will link in the description down below. It will reset every Monday, and stays the same for the whole week. What you want to do is start up your challenge portal and do delves until you reach that floor. At the time of me recording this video, there's a bunch of them, but it looks like the lowest one is at depth 120. You'll always start your challenge portal at 110 at the start of the week, and don't get the challenge portals confused with challenge easy portals. Those always start you at 110 no matter what, but sometimes you can use that if the Neon Underground is at depth 110. Anyway, take your account to that depth and begin farming. Start backflipping through all the blocks with Neon Ninja and collect the crystals, which also give you shadow shards. And if you have a max vacuum, this will make the method a lot better. And basically, it's like getting two things in one because you're also getting crystals, which you will need for geode stuff. Now, don't worry about completing the objective or the boss. Just go all the way through the delve collecting all the crystals from those blocks. If you do have a high enough level vacuum, you can leave the crystals exposed from the blocks and just vacuum it to collect more. But you also don't need a maxed out vacuum to do this method at all. Go all the way towards the end of the delve doing this method, and once you're done, leave it and restart the whole thing from the beginning. Since you're not actually defeating the boss, your challenge portal won't be going up, so you'll be fine to repeat it again. If you really want to, you can use an alt account to hold the portal for you, but you can also just do this on one account as well. For the Tuesday bonus, there's a lot of things you can farm for because it is gathering day. You get more ore for mining, so we can look at a few different options here. Ideally, you would want patron and alt accounts, but if you're just a solo person, then this won't be as efficient, but it's still gonna work. Now, you could farm for things like nitro, sunlight bulbs, or other things like that, but I've got something even better than that. Just stay tuned towards the end of the video where I go over what some of my friends recommend for flux. Although if you really do need the materials for something, then you can definitely farm those things. I've also heard some good things about farming geode resources like bardium and sparkazite and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get into all of that stuff because my knowledge for tier 5 resource farming isn't the best. But what I do know is that you're going to need a pretty good thumper, a vacuum, and an omni tool, and a lot of gas, so you will have to have a lot of modules maxed out. Now for Thursdays, there is a method. Technically you can do it on other days as well, but I'm going to get into that towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that one as well. Next up, we got Saturdays. Now if you are wondering how you can actually make flux on Saturdays, since it is XP day, it's pretty simple. After you reach level 30, you go through Paragon levels. And for every prime number you hit, you can get some primal paragon pinatas that you can sell. And to get this XP, I talk about this in my XP videos, but basically to summarize, you can go into a U10 ship. I've been hosting a bunch of these on my stream, and if you do want to catch me live, I usually stream around 12 AM EST or 4 UTC. Not that exact time, but that's usually when I start up the stream. And so far I've been daily live streaming, so we'll see how long I can keep that up for. Anyway, moving on, an alternative would be to do /join ship, and you can see if anyone's hosting on there. Ideally, you'd want to be a cleaner with close to 10k light, and that would give you a higher chance of joining these ships because most people just want to leech. So having a cleaner is really good. I don't recommend lying because then you're just gonna get blocked and then people won't really invite you because then they'll just know your name, and then buying name changers isn't really gonna help either. So try to farm some light. I do have some light videos, some guides for that, so check that out if you need to. But anyway, with those pinatas, you could sell those straight away, or if you're feeling extremely lucky, this drop rate is pretty insane. I had a friend that went through 30,000 of these pinatas to get the wings, and the wings go for like 50-ish mil, somewhere around that at the time of me recording this. It also just depends on the platform you play on, but overall I would just recommend selling the pinatas. Not worth going through that many of them. Anyway, let's move on to the final day, which is Sunday. Now this day isn't anything too special. You do get a little extra magic find, so you can get some of those flux artifacts, and if you have more than 8,000 magic find, you'll start to see more stellar drops. And with those drops, you can loot collect those. Sometimes they have pearls on them. You can sell the pearls, and then you can sell your stellar forge fragments, stuff like that. Now it's not really like the best method or anything, but what you could do is combine it with something else. So usually a lot of people need gem boxes. So as you're farming gem boxes, you can try to pick up the loot as well. So not only are you getting flux that way, but you can also do gem boxes, so you can kind of combine the things there. Now that we got all of the weekly bonuses out of the way, let's get into Luxion and some of these event items. Now, this method is more of like a waiting game, but it's definitely worth doing. With Luxion, you've probably seen him at the hub before. Every other Friday, he appears and has stuff at random. Some of his items aren't tradable, but some of them are. You can kind of just check the marketplace to see if they're tradable. Now, if you don't have the dragon coins to buy his tradable items, you can just buy the stuff from the market. And what you want to do with these items is hold on to it for at least 3 months. Ideally, you want to do a little bit more than that, maybe even half a year, maybe even a year. But you can check the prices every month or so and see if it changes. Chances are that if it does appear back into Luxion at some point, you'll have to wait even longer because then the prices are going to drop even more. But the longer you hold on to them and they don't appear in Luxion, then the prices are going to go up and you're going to make a huge profit on these. An example of an item that I profited off of was Scout Saucers. Now, if you don't know, these things loot collect into 4 chaos cores, so they do have a purpose. And when they appeared in Luxion, I bought them at around 200k each, maybe 400k each, even up to 600k each. And once Luxion left, maybe about like a month later, there weren't too many on the market. They were starting to slow down, and the prices went up to like 4 mil each. I'm not sure what the prices are looking like now, but it's going for at least a couple mil. So you can see how good the profit is there, even with the tax. Next up, let's talk about some event items, because this kind of ties in with the Luxion stuff, because the longer you hold on to these items, and whenever they don't show around, the higher the prices will be, because some people will need them for mastery or other things. But basically, every month or so, Trove releases a new event, and in those events, there are mastery items that people can farm for only during that event. Usually on day 1 of an event, the prices for new mastery items can go anywhere from 50k each to even 50 mil each. It might be a little bit hard selling them, but maybe you can use the Discord trade chats or trade chat in Trove in general, and you can just see if you can find a buyer there. Then on the next few days, the prices kind of get lower, they kind of stabilize. If you are able to sell them as early as possible, you can do that, but if you don't want to do that, then what you could do is hold on to those items to sell later. Chances are that someone may have missed that event or any events, and they're going to need those mastery items at some point. You can wait anywhere from 4 to 5 months, maybe a little longer, and then you can decide to sell them. Just check the marketplace. And this method also applies to new updates. On the first couple days of it, if you get one of the new mastery items, you can sell that for a lot of flux. If it's a common item, you might not be able to sell for that much, but if it's super rare, you can sell it for a ton and make a lot of profit. An example of this is when the Paragon update first dropped, the Primal Paragon wings found from the pinatas were going for about 120 mil each, so they're pretty expensive. Now, it's been a couple years since that update, and the prices for them kind of stabilized, but they're pretty expensive still. I think they're going for like 50 to 60 mil still. Alright, so hopefully with all these methods I've talked about so far, hopefully you're able to at least pick one of those. And if you don't like any of the ones I mentioned, maybe the next few that I'm going to talk about may interest you guys. Alright, so this one's kind of annoying to farm without alts, and if you don't have any alt accounts, this is going to require a ton of RNG. But you can check out what the current challenge portal week has so far, and you can see if they have Daughter of the Moon or not. You can have an alt account hold that depth, and with your main account and with your other alt accounts, you can fight Daughter of the Moon over and over as long as you have your alt account holding it for that current week. And basically you have a chance at getting either a gunship, which is about 1.6 mil at the time of me recording this. There's a chance that you can get a Moonsail glider, which is about 800k each. Or if you're super lucky, you can get a Lunaclipsia, which is going for about 40 to 60 mil. During the Polished Paragon update, they made the chances increase by a little when you're farming above depth 160 for these delve mounts. Now, there are other ones you can farm for in delves, but I never tried actively farming for them. I just got them naturally from playing. Because there's one that's called the Prophet's Throne, which is from Weeping Prophet. That's currently going for 10 mil. There's also the Sculpin Air Swimmer, which you get from fighting the Vengeful Pinata boss, and that's going for nearly 20 mil. Now, these mounts are just a few that I just gave an example for. There are other ones that you can try to get as well. You can feel free to check out the spreadsheet I linked below to check out if there's a mount that you want to farm for. Just make sure that the one you are looking for is tradable. And while we're on the topic of delves, another thing you can do is farm the Understacks biome. Now, I'm going to include this method in this section. I've used this before in the past, but a couple of my friends also suggested it to me. But how this works is you can get a delve gateway for the Understacks from the market to start off with. Then once you're in the delve, you can pick up some of the portals at the NPC when you beat the boss. You might have to go up a few depths to find it. I found mine after the 4th depth, and it works out because you're always being put into an Understacks biome, and since it costs inert geode, you can just farm the inner geode as you try to find the NPC. So basically just keep fighting the bosses over and over, you get more inner geode, you find the NPC, and then you can start buying those portals. Now if you really wanted to, you could sell those portals, but let's just get back to the method here. You can continue through the Understacks biome for a really long time. I forgot what the delve limit was, but there is a limit to how many you can actually do. There is a certain amount, I don't know if it's like 60 and then it stops you, or if it's like 50 and it stops you. I really can't remember, but let's just say that you can do a lot. And the main thing that you do want to collect from here are the sample books, which are basically boxes that contain quilts. So just complete the delve and then open the chest at the end to get some. Then you can just continue to the next step. You can check the market to see which one sells more, either the boxes or the stuff inside of it, the sections or the quilts, whatever you want to call it, but it's most likely the boxes. The Understacks biome appears at depth 55, so you could either farm for them there, or you could just follow this little guide. So basically below depth 99, you get 16 sample books. Depths 100 through 139 gives you 32 sample books, and depths 140 and higher give you 64 sample books. Ideally, you just want to pick the one that you can farm the most efficiently in. And if you are wondering why people might need these, it's because when you open the boxes, you get the quilts or the sections, whatever you want to call them. And when you loot collect those, they go into cave kelp. And don't get these cave kelps confused with the ones from geode, but basically you can convert the kelp into free range electrolytic crystals, and that's going to be your 300 light food. Anyway, farming with this method can get you about 10 mil per day if you're using alt accounts. You can sell the boxes, you can sell the shadow caches that you'll be getting from here, and you're also going to get carpet talismans, and you can sell those as well. And while we're still on the topic of delves, another method I did want to talk about are the bronze q-mentos. Now these are tradable, but they're pretty hard to get. It's a rare drop, but it goes for a ton of flux if you can get them. The bronze ones currently go for 20 mil. Just make sure you're checking the prices to see if it's worth selling the bronzes or converting them into silver and gold ones, and you can kind of just check out which one gives you the most profit, because it might change later on in the future. You can only farm the bronze ones, but you can craft the silver and gold ones at the delve workbench. To get the bronze mentos, you have to farm 160 plus delves, and you can get them on any floor at random when you open the chest at the end. Not the shadowy vaults, but the regular chests. If you are able to farm at depth 160 and higher, you can take your alts up there and see if you can get lucky. You'll just have to get their power rank a little bit higher so you can get the loot from the delve. Alright, last method I wanted to talk about before I go over what some of my friends do for flux. And this one is going to be covering market flipping. And yes, you can still flip items even with the tax. You just have to study the market a little bit. I'll give you an example of an item and you guys can do a little thinking outside the box to see what kind of items that you guys can flip for. The item that I will use are the Klub Yada Pinatas. I've seen some on the market that vary in price a lot, like a lot. Like I've seen them go as low as 1 to 2k each, and even being sold for 3k each. It seems like a little, but you'll be surprised at the jump of the prices. I know I was going to give one example, but there are also some gardening items that will skyrocket in price when events roll around, because you're going to need these for something related to the crafting stuff for the event, and some people just don't carry these things on them, so they're just going to check the marketplace to see if they can get those items from someone else. And this isn't for like every single event, but it does come up sometimes. And I'm talking about these Totter Tates or like the Onionitos, stuff like that, or the Purple Lil. If any of these events come around and needs the gardening stuff, the prices are going to go up a ton, so you can make a lot of profit on these. And a certain event that I'm thinking of is going to be the Frosty event. Now it's not going to be the gardening items that I mentioned, but there are things like wallflowers or daydrop, gleamstone, stuff like that that you can sell, even Pearl of Wisdoms, Bardium, just like a bunch of resources. So if you are collecting them and the event does roll around in winter, which is when the Frosty event comes around, basically they're going to be used at a donation station. You can get a ton of Frosty boxes. It'll help out with your power rank, and everyone's going to be wanting to get those, especially in bulk. So what you could do is just save up these resources for that event specifically, and then you can just sell them for a ton of flux. And now time for the final method that my friends recommended to you guys. So shoutouts to my friends that recommended some of these ideas. So let's get straight into those. So starting things off here, what you want to do is buy materials that are in current demand in large quantities and split them up for sale in the quantity needed for these demands. So let's break this down and I'll give you an example of what this would be. So for example, the weekly chaos chest items need specific materials to craft them. So if something needed 100 bun feed, buy a stack of it and break it up into hundreds for sale. You can often quadruple your investment or more, and this applies to anything. You can go for the new costumes, any of the new mounts, the alloys for the chaos chests. Doesn't even have to be the chaos chests, it could be anything else new that comes out. And if it asks for a certain amount, you'd want to have a bulk of that item and sell it for the amount that it asks for. Now, some items are always in demand needing only one. Usually people are just going to uncheck the sort by unit price toggle, and they're just going to get everything sorted by the total price instead. This is perfect for buying things in bulk and selling them off as singles, often at 20 times what you paid for. Now, sometimes items have to be crafted to be useful. So basically you want to turn things like sponges into water, for example. People are lazy, so you can take advantage of that and spend less to craft the items than sell at a profit. There are also high ticket items like this, such as the neon night sky wings that require hunting down the various parts for crafting them. Another method is when you get a rare drop that is new and you know something that will be in the game for a while, so basically not like an event or anything like that, you would want to sell that right away as the prices will go down as time goes on. So an example of this is the multi-gear grind cycle, and this came out like a month ago-ish at the time of me recording this, and soon enough this item will be a regular drop. So when it first came out it was selling for 50 mil, and then now a few weeks later it's down to about 16 mil. For higher ticket items, choose a few that you like, watch them carefully over a couple months, and you're going to be able to tell how long things take to sell and for how much. So you'll want to invest in those items when they are low and start selling them when there aren't that many of them. This game is basically a marathon, not a sprint, but this is how you can make hundreds of millions of flux. Also, never invest in Trove of Wonders. You don't want to be gambling out here. But if you do have a Gonda, let me know. Alright, so in the beginning of the video, do you guys remember when I talked about there's a super good method on Tuesdays from the beginning of the video? So far all of these methods have been super good. I'm just referring back to the beginning where I talked about Tuesdays. So for Tuesdays, we can farm Radiant Shards, and this will make it 100 times better if you have 7 other alts with you and with Patron, and if you do it on Tuesday. But you can just do it without all that stuff too. Alright, let me go over everything real quick. You can easily make 1 mil in like 20 minutes of farming, but obviously it's going to depend on when you watch this video and the platform you play on. The prices may change, and who knows, you might even make more. But basically you want to go into the Radiant Ruins, which you can access pretty early. You don't even need a ton of movement speed either, but having a lot of jump will help out. And what you want to do is go out looking for those Radiant Giants. Basically those mobs that you find and you just have to fight them. There is a mod on this for PC if you have a hard time finding them, but it's not too bad. You guys on console can do it as well. And basically, while defeating them, they will give you Radiant Shards. And along your journey, as you're defeating these Radiant Giants, you'll also get Radiant Caches. What you want to do is open these on a Tuesday because you'll get the bonus, so you'll be getting 300 instead of the 100 it normally does. You can even check your inventory and you can check to see if it does give you the 300, which it should. Obviously take note of Patron Tuesdays, stuff like that. And after a bit of farming, I recommend selling them 1500 at a time. It's a lot more efficient that way rather than selling them at a full stack. And the other thing you can get from these Radiant Caches are the Radiant Steed mounts, which at the time of me recording this video is going for about 100k. So this method is pretty insane. The next method that I wanted to talk about is going to utilize the star chart, which you can use for any method if you want to. So shoutouts to Mr. Kill for this one. But in the star chart on the right side, you can find a 15% bonus or chance, which you can apply to your patron and farm on Tuesday because they all stack. So you can go to the Jurassic Jungle biome, and on the top layers you can farm meteorite fragments. And if you're on PC, there is a mod to make that easier to find. And like always, patron, alt accounts, all that stuff helps out a ton, and that means more flux for you guys. Now for the next method, I'm going to combine a couple things here. So we got shadow shard farming, gardening, and adventuring, and I'll show you how they all tie together. Alright, so the best thing that people can do with low budgets that are new to the game is to get your vacuum to level 10. Now, some people may say do other things like maybe level up your gas or your omni tool or whatever the case may be. I say the vacuum is pretty important to get up there. It not only paves the way for gardening, but it also makes it very easy to farm other modules. You can really pop off with this using one account, but it will help out if you have more than one account. It also makes it very easy to collect crystals with shadow shard farming, and when you turn the crystals from the shadow shard farming into the seeds, aka the alchemy plants, which you can find at the gardening bench, you can get a ton of profit. For those of you that play on one account, you can still get crystals very easily with Geode. You will need a thumper that's at level 10, but having the vacuum will just honestly make things a lot better, but the thumper just adds in like that extra benefit. And what you want to do is go into the first room or the lair looking thing in your geode caves. I personally just go to Moonglow Grotto, but it's up to you guys. I don't know if there's actually a better way for this, but that's just what I go to. And you want to find an area with the arrow and go inside of it, check for crystals, then go back to the sanctuary and enter the portal again. This is just so you don't waste your time looking for other areas that might have crystals. This way you can just go straight back in and just go through the cycle. And with only 5 minutes of farming, you can get about 3k crystals. Alright, so I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here, but I want to talk about moonlight bulbs. So to get these moonlight bulbs, you want to go to permafrost. You can get them from Faith Forest, but from my experience, I found more in permafrost, and overall it's a little bit easier to see because the biome is white and the moonlight bulbs kind of just pop out for you. There is like a little waypoint mod for these if you're on PC to use those, but basically what I was getting at here is selling them is kind of dangerous. There have been a bunch of people that have been scammed selling these bulbs, but basically this is how it works. The bulb buyer gives the seller the materials needed to craft the seeds, and then the seller crafts the seeds, and then during the exchange the seller gives the seeds, the buyer gives the flux, and you kind of just need a lot of trust. But you can also just use this for yourself. So now with all of this in mind, let's get into the gardening portion. So gaining flux with gardening depends on your budget, and right now you can make a really good profit with nitro seeds. And basically if you spend about 1 mil flux, you'll get 2 mil back, and if you spend 1 bill, you'll get 2 bill back. So it's a really good investment. And going into the plants, the alchemy plant is much easier to sell than the other ones. Very few people buy the other plants, mainly because they're also just never used in the game. But anyone who farms bulbs should definitely focus on purple and q-mentos. So basically, you'll want to buy the materials and try to get them when they're cheap. Just check the market, do a little bit of investigation work for about a week, and you can kind of see what happens with the prices. You can farm the moonlight bulbs, and then you can get the glim from the fishing area, and then if you need to, you can buy the other resources. And then when you're at the step when you're planting these seeds, make sure to use a golden watering can to get the extra harvests. And before I move on, let me go over a couple notes here. I say a couple, there's like 4 different notes here. So number 1, don't waste time flattening terraforms that are not flat. The arena flattener at the world spring bench can be used as a gardening field. You can add them end to end to make a straight highway of 8200 voxels. And if you just want a comparison of what these voxels are, Chloro is basically a 17 by 27 by 13. Those are definitely some real numbers, so you guys gotta trust me on that, right? Shoutouts to Chloro. Anyway, number 2, seed sowers are a total scam. So those things can plant a 1x1 while a bovine buildmaster can plant 3x1s. It's the same price, and even the bovine can be crafted at a reasonable price. Number 3, if you're new to farming and don't have much of a budget, the best way to get flux is to make the vacuum level 10, and by making it level 10, you can farm crystals through Shadow Shard farming and geode, and then you can make millions of flux by crafting the Eye of Cthulhu and Gleamstone seeds. And then lastly, number 4, in many scenarios, golden watering cans equals profit, especially with the alchemy plants. After the first watering with the golden watering can, you can start using normal watering cans. Alright, so one more thing that I wanted to talk about with this gardening stuff is that you're going to be getting chaos chest stock seeds, aka some chaos chests. But basically, you can't craft the seeds, but you can get them from bauble pods, superior compost heaps, evolving alchemy plant seeds, or you can just buy them from the marketplace. And the cool thing about these is that you can use it to level up clubs really fast, and you can even sell this to other people. All you need is the quest Snackle. It's basically the NPC that asks you to collect a chaos chest, and to get this NPC, the club requires a tier 3 repos of heroes fixture in order to spawn it in the club world. So with that in mind, you can basically sell club XP, you can sell adventurine, which is basically just converting your adventurine into clue bits. Just make sure you're not doing it at the hub because that's more expensive. Just go do it at a club that has it discounted, just so you're not wasting this adventurine. And then once you turn the adventurine into clue bits, you can sell that. And then on top of all that, you'll be getting some Clubiata pinatas. And with those pinatas, you can just put them on the marketplace to sell. So overall, lots of flux, lots of potential. Alright, we made it pretty far into this video. I just want to talk about one final method that's a little bit different than everything else that I have talked about. So it's technically not really a method for flux, but in the future, you might need flux to buy credit pouches, or you might want to save some time with getting qubits for whatever the case may be in the store that you're trying to get. But basically what I'm trying to say is there's a method for getting credits. So shoutouts to Airwriter for this method. Now I did not know this, but you can get credits by submitting a mod to the game developers. Now before you guys get excited about this, you have to be pretty lucky to get chosen and have it approved. But if you do win, you can get up to 60,000 credits. It just depends on what you do. Now I'll leave a link to the Trovosaurus page that talks about all this in the description, so you guys can check that out if you are curious. Now, I'm not really like a pro modder or anything like that, so I can't give you guys much detail on that. This is just a flux guide, but it's definitely worth looking into. And if you guys still don't like any of the methods that I mentioned, then if you're lucky enough, you can try to find Chilling and hunt him down, and that's going to get you the best profit in the game. Anyway, that's going to be it for my flux guide. I can't take all the credits for these methods, so like I said before, shoutouts to my friends for allowing me to share some of the methods that they wanted you guys to have. I will potentially at some point make a series from going from 0 flux to 1,000,000 flux or something like that. We'll just see in the future. I hope that you guys were able to find this helpful and you were able to at least take one method from this video. But on that note, thank you all so much for listening, watching, viewing, and subscribing, and I will talk to you all later.